So UFC on ABC 5, Emmett versus Topuria just wrapped up, and it was a great card overall, it really was. But in this video, I've matched up the winner of every single fight on the card with a future opponent that I believe makes sense, and I think probably is just very realistic with kind of when I think that they should be taking this matchup. In the main event, Ilia Topuria, he just dominated Josh Emmett, man. Looked really, really good on the feet, and what's so crazy is I would say Ilia Topuria's strong suit is the grappling. And that's how good he is at striking. I mean, when this guy puts it all together in one fight, it's going to be a really, really dominant performance from there on out. However, for Ilia Topuria, there's two major options in my opinion. The first major option is Alexander Volkanovski. If Alexander Volkanovski and beats Yair Rodriguez, he should defend against Ilia Topuria. He's got nobody else to defend against, really, so I think that would make sense. Maybe at UFC 293 in September, if Volkanovski can turn around that quickly. If he can't turn around that quickly, or if he wants to fight Islam Makhachev at 155 pounds, I think that Ilia Topuria could then fight Arnold Allen for a title shot. If he beats Arnold Allen, he gets the title shot. I do actually think Topuria would beat Arnold Allen as well after watching that dominant performance fight Topuria. But yeah, I think if Volk wants to defend at 145, he can fight Topuria. I think that makes sense. However, if Volk decides to move up to 155, maybe he could fight Arnold Allen. I think that would probably make sense in my opinion. Now let's move down the card to the co-main event. Maycee Barber just beat Amanda Ribas. And no one's going to believe me when I say this, but I actually did want to pick Maycee Barber. But I didn't because I knew that Jacob from We Want Picks had an insane amount of money on Amanda Ribas. I wasn't going to burst this bubble. I was going to support the boy, even if I did think that that Maycee Barber was going to win. But another big piece of news that I found out that I probably shouldn't be sharing publicly, in case of other competition out there. But Maycee Barber's single. I thought she was married. I found out that she's single. I need to get my ass in shape. I need to start winning some boxing fights. And maybe then I can have the confidence to message her on Instagram. But with that being said, I think that she should fight Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy is up the rankings. You could say, oh, that's a weird fight. Lauren Murphy's old. She sucks. And I'm like, yeah. Exactly. Dude, UFC is still trying to promote Maycee Barber. This girl's got a massive following on Instagram. She's like 400k followers on Instagram. She's a big name. She's marketable. Like, the UFC likes her a lot. Like the UFC probably likes her a little bit too much. She just defeated Amanda Ribas by finish. I mean, if she goes out there and beats Lauren Murphy, and especially if she beats her by finish, maybe we really could talk about, you know, Maycee Barber being a top 5 fighter. So I think that would make sense. I think that's a fight that makes sense. I think that's an option that makes sense. And I think that that's just a fight that we should do. I think we should do Maycee Barber versus Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy, you know, she's older. She's probably looking for another fight. Now we move on down the card to Justin Tafa versus Austin Lane. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. The doctor should have just stopped the fight. Like, I am a massive fan of Justin Tafa, but I would not have been comfortable with Justin Tafa continuing the fight after that eye poke. That eye poke, man. I don't know if you guys saw my live reaction, but oh, dude, I did not deal with it well, dude. It went right in the eye, and then Justin Tafa's eye started bleeding. Like, dude, the doctor should have just stopped the fight instead of almost, like, in a weird way. It almost sounded like he was pressuring Justin Tafa to continue. It was bad. But anyway, the fight didn't last very long. I'm normally not a fan of doing this at all and just making them a rematch. I actually do want to watch this fight, though. I actually do want to see how this fight genuinely would play out. So I think Justin Tafa, I don't know how long his eye would take to recover. It genuinely might take a long time. That was a really, really bad eye poke. But Justin Tafa versus Austin Lane, or this is the craziest idea you might have ever heard. Justin Tafa's brother is in the USA right now. Austin Lane versus Junior Tafa, UFC 290. I mean, the Tafa brothers can stay in the USA for a few more weeks. I don't know. Austin Lane versus Junior Tafa, UFC 290, or Austin Lane versus Justin Tafa in UFC 293 in Australia. I think that makes sense. Now we move down to David Onama knocked out Gabriel Santos, and start with I really like Gabriel Santos, so it was hard. But the harder part was the most cringe celebration I've ever seen in my entire life. And because you made me go through that cringe and you made me go through that struggle of having to watch that cringe celebration, I hated it. You have to fight now a man who is probably going to end your career, in Brito. Brito has a fight booked next week. I am really worried for Weston Wilson. Not only Weston Wilson's career, I'm worried for Weston Wilson's life in this fight. And with that being said, I think Brito is going to absolutely demolish Weston Wilson. And then he can fight David Onama in Brazil in September. That's a fight that makes sense to me, just in general. But also, you've got to punish David Onama for that very cringe, horrible celebration that just... Anyway, let's move on. Brendan Allen, really good performance against Bruno Silva. Wasn't a flawless performance because Brendan Allen did get hurt by Bruno Silva at times. Like, Bruno Silva did land a couple of really good shots. But Allen, you know, did what he needed to do. Got the submission. That's how I thought he was going to win. It's kind of how everyone thought he was going to win. And he called out Jared Cannonier. He seems to be under this, like, weird... maybe a delusion that he deserves a title shot. Like, yes, he's on a big win streak right now, but... Allen, mate, you haven't fought anyone ranked, aside from Andre Muniz, you know what I mean? And you lost to Chris Curtis. You don't get the shot against Jared Cannonier yet. Like, you are ranked at the very bottom of the top 15. Here's what I'm going to propose. Fight Roman Dolidze, who is ranked number 9. If you beat Roman Dolidze, which I think he would, I genuinely do believe that Allen would beat Roman Dolidze. Then, after you beat Roman Dolidze, you can fight Jared Cannonier or someone up the top. Or... what we could do is you could fight the winner of maybe Sean Strickland or Abus Magomedov. Maybe you could fight Jack Hermanson. We can rematch. We can try and rebook that fight. Or you can fight Imavov. Maybe Dolidze doesn't want to fight soon because he's got a kid on the way. But at the same time, he's 34 years old. So he kind of needs to get a fight going. But I don't see Allen... I don't mind the matchup. I respect the call out. But I don't think Jared Cannonier is going to fight all the way down the rankings when Jared Cannonier openly said he doesn't even want to fight Khamzat Chimaev unless it's for a title shot. So I think Brendan Allen, hold the brakes a little bit. Roman Dolidze, I think that makes sense. Ranked number 9. If Allen can beat Roman Dolidze, we're talking top 5 opponents from there. And that's a good option. He also called out Dricus du Plessis. And I don't mind that either, actually, honestly. If Dricus du Plessis does lose, I think Brendan Allen makes sense. Now we move down the card. Neil Magny beat Philip Rowe. I think people probably aren't too happy with this decision. I can understand it. But I didn't really watch the fight. I'm going to be honest with you guys. The first round, it was pretty boring, so I just started playing Clash of Clans. So I didn't actually watch it. But anyway, Neil Magny got the nod. I think what you've got to do is actually capitalize on Neil Magny's willingness to fight anybody. And I think he should fight Ngari. Now, you might say that doesn't make sense at all. Ngari's fighting against Jeff Neal. He's going to be ranked higher, all this sort of thing. I understand where you're coming from. But let's build up Ngari slowly. This guy's 25 years old. Let's give him time. He's going to beat Jeff Neal, in my opinion. Maybe a controversial take. Maybe people want Neal. But I think Gary gets past Neal. And then I think you can fight Magny. Aside from that, maybe Mikhail Pahea. But Mikhail Pahea's got a fight booked. There's nobody else. If you actually do look at the welterweight rankings. Booked. Magny. booked. Already fought. And it's top. So unless you're going to give him Khamzat Chimaev at 170 or Bilal Muhammad, there's no one. There's no one that makes sense. Ngari, Neil Magny said that he's willing to fight Ngari, so let's give him Ngari. Let's literally just give him Ngari. Ngari could beat, potentially, Jeff Neal. He'll be highly ranked, and then he can fight Neil Magny, who will also be highly ranked. I just think that's a fight that makes sense, honestly. Now we move down the card to Randy Brown beat Wellington Turman. Randy Brown, sorry, just isn't that fun of a fighter. I saw people thinking that Wellington Turman won this fight as well, which is a crazy take. But, yeah, Randy Brown is not that fun of a fighter, huh? But I do have a pretty good matchup for him. I think a fight against Joaquin Buckley, he doesn't have a fight booked yet. I think this would be a fun fight. Joaquin Buckley just recently moved down to 170. He would bring the fight to Randy Brown. He would close the distance against Randy Brown. He would go after Randy Brown. He would try to finish Randy Brown. It would become a fun fight, which is something that we haven't really seen from Randy Brown recently. We haven't really seen a fun fight from Randy Brown aside from the JDM fight, but that wasn't really Randy Brown's fault. You guys know what I mean. I think Randy Brown versus Joaquin Buckley makes sense. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Mateusz Rebicki just beat Loic Radzhabov, and he looked really good doing it. I've got two options. The first option that come to my mind, sorry guys, was Guram Kutatalidze. I think that's a good fight, but the problem is you can't really trust Guram Kutatalidze. But you got to consider this with Mateusz Rebicki, right? He's very lowly ranked, but this guy has one of the most insane records right now, and he clearly has the skill set of a top 15 guy. So if you go to the lightweight rankings and you look at the rankings, there is a fighter that does not have a fight booked, and his name is Matt Frivola. Matt Frivola wants to fight Paddy Pimblett. He's not getting that Paddy Pimblett fight. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I think Matt Frivola probably has to defend that ranking, and then he can kind of move on with the fight. I think this would be fun. Matt Frivola versus Mateusz Rebecki. I think Mateusz Rebecki and Matt Frivola would both have good chances to win that fight. Frivola might be able to get it done if he can start wrestling, you know what I mean, as well. Like, Rebecki's a great grappler himself, but I'm really happy with this pick as well, because people were all on Loic Sack, you know what I'm saying? And I knew Mateusz Rebecki was like Loic Radzhabov, but better. The one thing I'm going to say about this fight, though, Radzhabov is massive for 155, is he not? He's huge. He's huge for 155. He can get that cardio all fixed. If he can maybe learn to check leg kicks, Loic Radzhabov could become a problem himself at 155. However, Mateusz Rebecki, he's the guy that got it done. Guramku Tatalidze next, or give him a ranked opponent in Matt Frivola, or you could give him Renato Moicano maybe. I think Mateusz Rebecki is that guy that is so skilled and so talented with such a good record of 18-1. You kind of want to capitalize on that and maybe give him a ranked opponent, maybe a guy that's going to get him to the ranked opponents, because Rebecki is that good. He genuinely is. He's a fantastic fighter. Tabitha Ricci just beat Gillian Robertson. She is ranked at 115 pounds, quite low in the rankings, I believe, women's strawweight. She was number 15. She just beat Gillian Robertson, who wasn't even ranked, sorry, but she was coming up. I think Ricci should fight a girl that's going to give her a little bit more name value, and that is Michelle Waterson-Gomez. Michelle Waterson-Gomez, she doesn't have a good record, but she's got like over 1 million followers on social media. She kind of seems to be that test that you give all of the girls coming up, and I think this would be the fight. Michelle Waterson-Gomez, you know, she's coming off that loss to Luana Pinheiro, which is somewhat controversial in a way. She hasn't won in a long time. But, yeah, I think this would be it. I think you could really build Tabitha Ricci's name if she can get past Michelle Waterson-Gomez. So I think that's the fight to make. Put it on a pay-per-view prelims or something like that, I think, maybe. Or you could do Ricci versus Luana Pinheiro in September in Brazil. Or you could probably do, there's lots of options. You could do her versus Angela Hill even, honestly. There's so many options you could do. There's so many options that you could do with Tabitha Ricci. But I think Tabitha Ricci versus Michelle Waterson makes the most sense from a company standpoint. They can build Ricci's name off Michelle Waterson-Gomez, who's incredibly popular. And now Joshua Van just beat Shelga Shumagulov, a split decision. I think Van won the fight. I picked Shelga Shumagulov. I was proven wrong by Van. I'm actually quite happy I was, because Joshua Van's like 21 years old, man. This guy's young. And he's really improved. This was a nightmare matchup for Van, man. I mean, Van in the past has shown an ability to get pressed against the cage. He's shown an ability to get taken down off it, and his takedown defense hasn't been good in the past. This guy's improved. He is still really small for flyweight, but he's born in Myanmar. I don't know how much he represents Myanmar, because I do believe he's lived in the USA for a long time. But if he did want to represent Myanmar, I think he does actually. He said he wanted to be the first Burmese fighter in the UFC, so I could be lying. Sorry, guys. Anyway, guys, I'm so sorry, man. I just streamed. I got a cough. Anyway, Joshua Van. I think he should fight on the UFC card in Singapore against the winner of the Road to UFC finals in Hyun Sang Park, who's 8-0 himself, who's a young guy, 27 years old. I think it would be a good competitive fight. It'd be interesting to see what the guys can do. You know, both guys are finishers. Hyun Sang Park's a guy with a lot of finishes on his record. Joshua Van's a guy with a lot of finishes on his record. He can represent Myanmar, and then Hyun Sang Park can represent South Korea. They can fight in Singapore. I think it makes sense. I think it's a cool fight. You know, we move down to Chippy Mariscal versus Trevor Peek. Mariscal looked good. He scrapped it out. Looked great. And then we also, you can kind of tell where I'm going here. Jack Jenkins beat Jamal Emmers. I thought Emmers won, but it is what it is. It was dicey. Maybe you give Jack Jenkins the first 2 rounds. A fight that I actually want to see is Jack Jenkins versus Chippy Mariscal. I do think Jack Jenkins still has a little bit to prove. I think a fight against Chippy Mariscal, I think Jack Jenkins would be able to get past Chippy Mariscal personally. And I think that would make sense. Do it UFC 293 on the prelims. I think he called out Nate the Train. You don't deserve Nate the Train, mate. You barely got past Jamal Emmers. Doesn't make sense. Not a call out that makes sense at all. Jack Jenkins versus Chippy Mariscal. at 145 pounds at UFC 293 makes all the sense in the world to me. Now, Cedric Dumas showed really good wrestling and grappling out of nowhere against Brundage. I mean, nobody could have predicted this. Dumas doesn't have wrestling, he doesn't have grappling. He's a striker, pretty much. He does have offensive wrestling. Nobody could have predicted the way that he was just going to out-wrestle and out-grapple Cody Brundage. Nobody could have done this. It was crazy. But, the thing about Cedric Dumas is, now that he's got a win in the UFC, I think people are going to start to like him a little bit more. And this guy is marketable. People laugh at me when I say this, but Cedric Dumas is a marketable guy. He's got face tats. You know, a lot of kids, you know, they look up to, like, rappers and stuff like that. They've got face tats, like, they think it's cool. And to be honest, Cedric Dumas does look cool. He's got a cool look about him, you know what I mean? Like, he does have, he's got, like, hood rat tattooed on his stomach. He's got tattoos. He's got the scar here. And he's just got, like, the stitches. Cedric, in my opinion, Cedric Dumas is a marketable guy. He is. He does look cool. He's got a cool look about him. However, I think that we should give him a fight that he can win easily, and it's Dustin Stoltzfus. Stoltzfus is a good fighter though, and he's a good grappler too, so maybe not. I was thinking about doing Dusko Tudorovic, but Dusko Tudorovic was injured. I believe Stoltzfus is still on the roster. You could be lazy and do just rebook the Punahali Soriano fight, and that probably is a better fight to do actually, because Soriano really would be a fun fight for Dumas. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. There's lots of options there, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching. By the way, so much content coming out over the next 2 weeks. It's going to be insane. I'm going to be uploading like twice a day, all the time. I'm going to be pumping out content like nothing else. It's going to be crazy, and I'll see you guys in the next one.